Hello to everybody out in Facebook land, YouTube land, and LinkedIn land. Welcome back to our next conversation with an amazing professional here at the Parent Tween Connection. For those of you I haven't had the opportunity to meet, I'm Clarissa Constantine and I'm the founder. Our mission here is to create community for all of the adults who support teens in our world. So that's parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles, initially for moral support, but sometimes moral support and I've been there isn't enough. And we need people like Jen in our world. She is a mom of teenagers, but she's also the girl mom coach. And she is absolutely one of my favorite human beings on the planet. We have so much in common. And Jen, I'm so excited that you're with me today. So thank you for being here.
Yay. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
So I actually, back in a previous iteration of Jen's business structure, she was one of my coaches, which is why she's become one of my favorite people, because she's loving and caring and brass tacks when you need her to be, which is, if you're really focused on growth and improving your relationships with yourself or with others, having somebody who reflects to you is really important. And so I love that your business has morphed into, really not even morphed, but like niched into working with moms of girls.
Yeah.
So can I ask to start with why you went from like broad life coaching for women? Because you are really good at that.
Thank you.
And now you're
Yeah,
doing
I love this question. Thank you for that. I think my two worlds collided. I have a very interesting life. I have lived with teenage girls for about 25 years, basically almost since I was one.
God
Um,
bless you, is what
it's
many
a
might
crazy
say.
world. Yep. So the real um, constant in my life has been the teen girl. I was a boarding school teacher, private boarding school teacher for high school, and an athletic coach, and a house parent. So that meant we lived with teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, those were girls. And so this was before I even had kids, and then obviously before they were teenagers. So for 25 years, I've had this constant in my life of living with and really having a passion for empowering particularly teenage girls.
Mm-hmm.
My son's over it. But there's just this, there's something that happens to our girls that
Yeah.
this space they walk through when they become tweens and teens. So I was living that. And then I was working with women. And at some point, my worlds sort of collided. And it occurred to me that I can put these two pieces together, continue to work with our teen girls, but then niche down into working specifically with their moms,
Mm-hmm.
our the moms of teen girls, and coach them on how to build um, connection and empowerment and confidence in their daughters, so that they become the next group of women
Mm-hmm.
who have that.
Well, and both of us being daughters, right? Both having had moms along the way, I know that it's not uncommon for daughters to want things emotionally from moms that moms don't know how to give, or perhaps moms are unable to give. And so I
Mhm.
love the fact that you're working with the moms, because not only are you helping them raise more confident young women, but you're also helping them raise their own confidence along the
Mhm.
way, which, I mean, gosh, if you're working at both ends, how amazing. So I know that
Yeah.
you and I talk a lot about what our girls are actually going through, like what's happening with them. And I know that you were like, you know what? I've got three things that I want moms to understand about why our daughter's confidence plummets as early as like what, age 8?
Yeah, it's about that early, and some of this makes a lot of sense with that age. But it's shocking how early that is. And I would say that, as moms, I think it does lean more towards not understanding
Sure.
versus not being able to.
Sure.
Building awareness around this particular piece is the first win. So it's almost like a triple threat as I see it. Three specific things happen to our girls around this age. First of all, obviously, puberty. Now, yeah, that's 8, 9 is early, but right around those tween years, they are literally changing from the inside out. And what that means for boys is this influx in testosterone. And that means go take risks, jump off buildings, like boys will be boys. What that means for our girls is an increase in estrogen and an emotional awareness and an emotional just overflow. And our girls don't know how to handle that. Who knows how to handle that at 10 years old?
Who
So
knows
our
how to
girls
handle that at 40
at
something
40, right?
sometimes.
Yeah. So our girls are being overwhelmed with emotions, not knowing how to do that hormonally. Then you add the second piece, which is our culture, our society that has told girls from you know centuries ago how to be good girls. Yes, that has changed a little bit, but certain pieces evolve with the same consistency: body image, uh, sexuality, who our girls are supposed to be in the classroom, out of the classroom, on the athletic field, how feminine they're supposed to be, what they're supposed to look like. And we are telling our girls they can be anything, but really we're telling them they need to be everything. So that's strike two. And then strike three, or the third piece of this puzzle is us. The stories that we women carry from our grandmothers and their grandmothers. And so those personal stories, the particular baggage that we women bring. And that's a little bit different for each woman. But those three pieces um, contribute to our daughters hitting their tween and teen years and just having that confidence plummet. And what I mean by confidence plummeting is confidence is just a certainty in ourselves, a trusting in our gut, an understanding that we can take action and it will be okay. And that's when we suddenly see our girls stop talking in the classroom, stop talking at home, start questioning themselves, start looking to other people to know what to do, or people pleasing, perfectionism.
And also looking for external validation, which also leads to a lot of challenges with a lot of what teenagers face, right? Like the promiscuity and the drugs and the drinking and the seeking to be
Eating
accepted.
disorders, yeah.
Yep, the
Body
disordered
image.
eating and mental health all over the place. So,
Yeah.
all right. And the other thing that I think is important for parents to keep in mind is puberty isn't like a light switch, right? So for anyone who's listening to this, like, oh, 8 or 9, that's super young. Yeah, maybe like your daughter hasn't started her cycle yet at 8 or 9, although some do. But there's a shift, like it's a gradual, maybe over several months or even 6 months that it's a gradual incorporation, if you will, or gradual
Yep.
change. So
And
it's
it's
not
not necessarily the puberty at age 8 or 9 that's hitting her. It could be the social awareness of her world. It could be that she's
absolutely
becoming more aware of the media. And in this time, in our day and age, social media, right? Like how young are our
absolutely
children becoming aware of social media and what's going on around them? It used to be
right.
checkout lines. Now so that's why I would say that's more why it's 8 or 9.
Sure. All right. So we can't really do anything about the hormonal changes that our daughters are
Yeah.
going to experience.
Some of
Because,
this we can control and some of it we can't.
right. But let's also not forget, so we've got their hormones, we've got society, which we can have an influence over how our daughter perceives societal stuff. But really the owning our own aspect of things, right? Or as I call it, own your own story, right? Like you said, it's the way we show up with our mother stories, our grandmother stories, our great grandmother stories. We've got to remember we can only influence what we can influence or what we can control. Oh, but by the way, we may also be going through some hormonal changes ourselves as our daughters are going through this. So, as if just dealing with our daughters' changes wasn't enough, we're all going like, where are my brain cells?
Yeah. Yeah. Except that hopefully we've developed that prefrontal cortex where we can be less impulsive and understand. And maybe we've learned how to understand our emotions. Maybe we haven't, though, because our mothers carried that baggage, right?
Right.
It's cyclical.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are definitely things that we can do. And
So a lot of what I see you sharing in your like your emails to folks or your social media is that our girls need us.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I know that your coaching is largely focused toward the moms of teen girls or tween girls, but there are plenty of us who are adults in this space who don't actually have our own kids, but we can still influence these young women. And so
Yes.
I know that you've got like three kind of go to things that as moms and dads and aunts and uncles, even if they're of the honorary variety, right?
Yes. I think
Things.
our educators, anyone who has connection to tweens and teens can take these 3 steps to empower our girls,
Mhm,
and our boys, but
sure.
particularly this concept that um, seems to hit our girls differently.
Right.
We
All right.
encourage our boys to take risks to a
Mhm.
degree. We encourage our girls to be good.
And be
So,
safe. Right.
yeah.
All right.
Um,
So lay it on me. What are these three things that all of us can incorporate?
so, because I have that brain you just described and forget things and have fewer brain cells by the second, I need to be able to remember things. So, I love using the word let, as in let them be confident. Let them be confident. And these are my 3 steps. So the L in let is to listen, obviously, right? But this actually is really hard, particularly for parents, particularly for moms at
Mhm,
this stage, because up until this time, we needed to tell our children what to do in order to get them to survive. Like, hey, look both ways, right?
mhm,
Stop, eat your veggie. Like we've been constantly telling them what to do because we knew better. Things need to shift at this stage because our girls need to feel seen
mhm.
and feel
Absolutely.
heard. So this is hard because um, what's that? What's that? Spoiler alert. We know better, but we can't be putting that on them, right? It's a complete disconnect for our girls.
Mhm,
So listening and active listening, and what that means is validating their feelings, asking them questions, letting them lead conversations, and doing less talking.
mhm,
Um, Step two is that E, and that is encourage failure, right? The
mhm.
only way for us, for any of us to build confidence is to take action, fail, get back up and try again. But our
Right.
girls are learning that they're supposed to be perfect. And so
Mhm,
I don't know if anyone else recognizes this. I actually saw this happen with my own daughter, and I see it everywhere. They pull back from the things they used to be fearless about. So encouraging them to fail. And what that means is less complimenting on the grades, less complimenting on the results, and more on the process, more on the trying, more on the effort, and more showing them that failing is normal, right? So we celebrate failure. And then the T is teaching by example. Our girls are going to spot that hypocrite a mile away. So we need to do what we encourage them to do, and that means trying, failing, stopping the people pleasing, and owning our story. So,
right. It made me think of a conversation that we had with another professional during the roundtable. It was actually last evening, um, and the thought just left my head. What was I thinking? Wow, where did those brain cells go? But it was about trying, and it was about trusting the process and encouraging the process. Recognizing or commenting on, like, I love watching you do what you love doing.
yeah.
Emphasizing that they're doing it for the love of doing it, not for first place, second place, third place. Or I recognize that you made in rock climbing, you made a stronger or a wider step than you have before, or you
Mhm.
sang that better than I've ever heard you sing it, like with more emotion than I've ever heard, or
Yep.
whatever the case is, but like focusing on the action, not the outcome.
Yep. I think creating a safe space for her to also feel the failure, even if that's hard, right? It failure doesn't feel good.
Mhm.
So we don't need to fake it and say, that was amazing. If she hurts, just create the space for her to hurt and then walk with her through it, not necessarily talk her through it, but walk with her.
Oh, I like that concept. Talk to me a little more about the talk versus the walk. Like, what does that look like? Because it's really easy to be like, it's okay, you're gonna be fine. You'll get over this, whether it's a failed test in school or a broken heart or whatever, didn't make the cutoffs for states or something like that. What does it look like to walk with her rather than talk?
I think that incorporates all three of those. It's just
Mhm,
showing up. I
mhm,
think we're so afraid to say the wrong thing, and we might be getting to that soon, but just showing up, being willing to fail yourself as a mom,
mhm.
um, asking her how she's feeling, and then just letting her speak. Forgive me, the dog has
Yeah, it's all good.
he's learning how to open doors. But rather than telling her everything's going to be okay, I think what our girls need to hear, and our boys and all of us, this is normal.
Yeah.
Nothing broke. This is normal. Maybe you are going to be okay, but how are you? And then letting that come back to her.
Well, and I think that's something that, like you said, we all need. And that's a core underpinning at Parent Twin Connection is you're not alone. This is normal. Like kids rebelling, quote unquote, or kids like popping, as another one of our guests on the podcast a couple of years ago called it, like popping in middle school, is completely appropriate, right?
Yeah,
Puppy. There's a new resident teenager. No, I mean, that's the new resident toddler, right?
he's a toddler. Totally toddler. Yeah.
Okay, so with the
Yep.
um, is that the same analogy as the girls become more withdrawn, or did you have a different one?
Um,
I had a note that you said you wanted to talk about your favorite analogy to encourage
oh, the
parents as
favorite
their girls.
analogy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Analogy, not acronym. I
Yeah.
totally confused those in my brain.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is
It's
this
the care.
analogy as our girls
Yeah.
withdraw?
I love this. I do want to mention two things that I would suggest, and you just pointed out that we as moms need not do, and one of them is thinking you need to know everything, thinking you need
Yes.
to figure everything out, right? I think of this as when I first started teaching, and my students would ask me questions, and I would like have this panic attack about having to know. And there's something very powerful in conversations with our girls, in conversations with each other, to say, I don't know the answer to that. Like with my students, I would say, I don't know, let's all go find that answer, or
Sure.
I'll get back to you, but it's okay not to know. I think it speaks to building connection with her. When we show our girls by example that we're not perfect, it frees them to not have to be either. It
We
also
actually
shows them
just had
our honor.
somebody comment to that point. Somebody who's watching live in our Facebook group said, I have a friend who said they go around the dinner table at night and everyone shares one success and one failure that they had that day. The benefit is the kids get to see the adults fail. They see that it's normal, and they also get to see how the adults handle failure. That's an aspect we haven't talked about, but wow, that's so important, isn't it? That
Yeah,
like,
I think that's the example.
mhm,
It doesn't end, but if we are changing this the legacy, the story, right? If we're changing our generational stories, then when our girls are adults, are mothers, this stuff will be more natural to them. And then when
mhm,
they lead by example with their girls, the whole picture changes. We have to. We're carrying the heavier load right now to change those stories. Um, the other piece is not going it alone, and that's why I absolutely love the parent tween connection and the group, because the more we as moms, we as educators, we as parents recognize it's normal, the same way we tell our kids that feeling you feel, it's very normal, there's
mhm,
nothing to worry about.
mhm.
When we as parents experience this is normal, because we don't know what we're doing.
Right,
Even with the third kid, it's the first time we've parented the third kid, right? So
right.
to know you're not alone and that you can come
Mhm.
to a safe space like this, there you go, and ask your questions.
Yeah.
It's very empowering, um, and creates a safe space. Um,
That's awesome.
So
All right. So tell me this
we talk about the
analogy.
analogy.
Yeah.
So I this is not my analogy. I found this analogy in one of my favorite girl mom books. It's called Untangled, and it's written by Lisa D'Amour. Amazing book. And it speaks to walking our girls through the tween and teen years, helping her untangle all of these pieces. The analogy is that of a swimming pool. So if you picture our girls swimming in an in-ground swimming pool, and we, as their moms, are the walls or the wall of the pool. And the water, the pool, is the world, social media, her friends, the pressures. And so she's out there treading water, right? We're not like she's out there on her own, and she gets really tired because if you've been trying to show up and handle the pressures of teen world, you get tired.
Yeah.
So what happens when she gets tired? She will come and she will swim over and she will hold the wall. And what that looks like for us is when our girls need us. And when our girls are tweens and teens and they come over and they grasp the wall, we're like, oh, come to me. I've got you, right? Like we love that moment where she's like, Mom, I need you. I'm struggling. And as much as we don't want to see her hurting, we want to protect her and help her. And what happens when our girls go to the wall, they catch their breath, right? But that's what happens when they're with us. We fill them up. We give them rest. We give them comfort. We listen, right? We build them back up. But as she sits at that wall and she holds on, she can't stay there forever because that's not how you swim.
That's not
So
life.
that's not life. So she builds up her strength, she gets her rest, she catches her breath, and she's ready to go back out into the water. So she's ready to let go of you. But the kicker is if anyone knows being in a pool, when you want to get back into the middle of the pool, like and start treading water again, you don't just casually glide out. What do?
You go cannonball.
Or if you're holding onto the wall,
Oh, you kick off.
you kick off, you push off. And that's what our girls do to us, right? They feel strong, they feel supported, they're ready to go out, and they do that by pushing off of us. And that hurts. Like I'm getting chills thinking about it. It hurts when our girls are like pushing metaphorically, emotionally against us. But if we want our girls to learn how to swim, we have to hold that wall, right? Like if we were an above ground pool and they kicked off us and we bucked, like if we allowed that kick, that push to affect us, we're going to cave in that pool, right? We have to stand tall and we have to stand hard and firm because she's going to be back. And that is the greatest lesson for our girls to learn, that we are there, they have us to hold, and that we will let them go when they are ready to go back into the water.
Sure.
And we will be there when they need us again. Hard stuff.
And that's got to be that hurt. I mean, not being a mom myself, I haven't experienced it as the mom, but it's not just an emotional hurt. Like that's got to feel like a physical, like kick in the stomach.
A gut punch.
Yeah. Okay. Well, any of you moms who've been there and done that, you're not alone. Apparently, this is a thing.
Having read that analogy, it created normalcy around it, right? When you're like, oh, I'm not a bad mom that my daughter pushes or my sons. I actually felt this a little more with my boys. My daughter has yet to push. She's on the spectrum and her experience is different, but girls in my dorm push.
Oh, I bet.
They push, they want to talk at night, they need me, and then I see them on campus and they don't want to know me. They're too cool. And then they want you show them you're safe, you hold space for them, and you brace yourself.
What was that last part? It went a little bit soft.
Brace yourself.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, and I think that also speaks to not just bracing yourself. By the way, our commenter in the Facebook group said, "Yeah, that gut punch is a thing." So if you whoever's listening to this, you're
Yes,
totally not alone.
yes,
And by the way, folks in Facebook, thank you for your comments. That helps keep our conversations a little more lively and relevant, I think, to a lot of folks. But I think it also speaks to something that as women, I mean, thankfully, conversations about mental health and getting help are becoming way more normalized.
hmm
But that's also relative because, like, in our mom's generation, there wasn't conversation about any of this.
hmm
And I think it really speaks to, as the adults in the situation, if we know that we're the ones who, we're the ones who have the responsibility of being strong, of expecting that gut punch and knowing it's coming and knowing that it's normal and that if it didn't happen, there would actually be probably some developmental challenges for our daughters. We've got to
yes,
buttress
yeah,
ourselves
yeah,
and we have to find support for ourselves, whether that's a coach like you to figure out how to approach things differently, whether it's a therapist, because I'm a believer on both sides of that, right? Like therapy and coaching frequently go
yeah,
hand in hand, and there's a place for each and a place for both. It's,
yeah,
if you're in a partnership, working on strengthening your partnership with your co-parent, if it happens to be your spouse or your spouse and your co-parent, whatever that looks like.
yep.
um, Build yourself up so that you've got that support system when you need it. Preferably build it up before you need it because it'll make it easier.
Yeah, I think that is, I think as much as I think that's such a great point, and I think that's why, um, so I have a Facebook group, moms with tween and teen girls, but I've got moms in there who have little ones,
Mhm.
and I think I love the idea of wanting to be prepared for it. I also believe that it's sort of like when you actually have the child, you can be as prepared as you think you're going to be, and you're not going to be prepared. And each
Absolutely.
child is every child is different, so it changes moment to moment.
Right. And, I have folks who, when I say, oh, we're parent tween connection, they're like, oh, my kids aren't there yet. I'm like, no, you're right, but they're going to be there before you know it. And one of the best things that you can do to help ease some of the challenges that do come up during this time frame is to lurk and
Yep.
listen from those who've
Build your
gone
community
before.
now.
Build it now. You got it. Jen,
Yep.
we could talk forever. It's why you're one
I
of my
know
favorite
we
folks.
do.
But what I'd like to do is wrap up all of our conversations with our guests by asking them which of the Parent Twin Connection foundations of connection resonates most. So for those of you who aren't familiar with this, um, these are literally an outgrowth of a conversation I had with myself probably 4 years ago that I was like, okay, self, why is it that your teens, like my clients, my students,
Yep.
why do they feel more comfortable talking to you about things than they do talking to their parents about them? And so I just kind of sat down and these were kind of like a brainstorm of sorts. So if you're not familiar with them, folks, I will read them. And then Jen, I'd love to know, I know you're going to say many of them, but I'd love to know like one that's like
Yep.
jumping out and grabbing you today. So here they are. All the first letters of these phrases spell out connections. So we have create a safe place, observe, non judgment, nod and smile, explore, challenge your truths or curiosity, take your time, innovate, own your own story, which we've already referenced today, and nurture.
I don't know if it's because my brain just stopped there, but hands down, create a safe space.
Yeah.
Her world, I specifically speak to girls, and I am a boy mom, but their world is becomes so unsafe. From their friends to their classrooms to everything they knew, they will start to second guess. Why is she friends with me? What am I doing? When we create a safe space for our girls or our kids to come and tell us anything, and that is not to say they get a free pass, it is to say that we will always hold space for them, and there is nothing that is off limits. that changes every one of those other pieces. You
I
can't
agree.
do those other pieces unless you create that safe space.
For sure. And there's been, I mean, again, that's a whole other conversation that we could talk about. And it's actually a conversation that we've had with a couple of other folks who've been part of the roundtable. Creating that safe place involves paying attention to how we respond, right?
Yes.
And, not losing our brain. What do you mean you bleep, 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 bleep? Insert behavior here. But instead of that being like, wow, that's not what I expected to hear you say, but I'm really grateful that you decided to share that with me.
Yeah.
And then maybe even if it's like our conversation last evening was like, you know what, that was so not what I was expecting. And I absolutely want to give you the respect and the support that you deserve. And I'm just not there right now. So can you give me a few minutes?
Yeah. Were you in my house yesterday? That is basically the conversation where I had to say, I want to support you in every way. I need space to process this.
Right.
Thank you. Got it. We'll revisit.
Probably wrapped up with an I love you and a hug, if that's, the hug is part of
if that's her, yeah.
Right.
Yep.
But
each kid
really
having their own,
emphasizing I still love you despite the behavior that perhaps has happened or the situation. And yeah, you're not necessarily going to get a free pass on this. Like there may be punishment that comes, but I still love you. I think making that distinction between the human, the being and the doing, right? The person and the action. And we could go forever. So I'm going to say thank you.
I'm going to say thank you.
Absolutely.
As a mom, the community and the safe space you've created for us, parents, it's vital.
I'm glad to have you, and I'm looking forward to seeing how many more families we can help over the years. So for those of you who are part of Parent Tween Village, which is our family community, Jen is going to gift us a little bit more of her time. We're going to wrap up this live, and we're going to go live in our Parent Tween Village community, and we're going to be talking about girl drama, which has a whole lot of icky, sticky, yucky, mucky around it. But if you are watching this sometime from now, even, that video will live forever in the archives in Parent Tween Village in our Facebook group, as well as in our membership site. So even if you're not hearing this for another 6 months or 6 years, if this is feeling like it resonates, come on over to Parent Tween Village and check out what Jen has to say. And Jen, I will see you over there shortly. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you. Yay.